It is 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Roach?
Here.
Mr. Haynes?
Here.
Mr. Bowers? Here. Mr. Hedden? Here. Mayor May?
Here, we do have a quorum present, and get to my agenda if you don't mind. Reverend Spalding here. Is that here? Not going to be here? Okay, so y'all just can, we'll just do a brief invocation. Reverend Spalding was, I'm not sure if he's on his way, but we'll go ahead and start. It's like, please bow your heads. And our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity once again to assemble peacefully as community leaders. We ask that you give us the guidance needed as we make tough decisions, and that you continue to bless our commissioners and our staff as they go about serving the public on a daily basis. We ask that you be with all those families that are in need and that are hurting right now, and that you watch over this community and keep us safe. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
And let's see, I believe it is Commissioner Bowers' turn to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You may be seated. All right, well, also we have the minutes from the previous work session, special meeting, regular meeting, and the May 1st special meeting. So entertain any questions or additions or approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm not sure who did the second. Commissioner Hedden made the motion. Commissioner Roach made the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Hedden? Yes. Mayor May?
Yes, those minutes are approved. Y'all bear with me, I'm trying to get together here. One item today that I would like to do a proclamation, and we have Ms. Ann Brooks with us today from Frankfort, and those who may not know, Ms. Brooks' son is also a mayor, 4 terms in Florida, went to school here. Y'all know him as Butch.
Graduated with me.
Graduated with you. And so we're honored to have you, and we will make this presentation in recognition of Neurofibromatosis Day. I'll read the proclamation and present to Ms. Brooks. Actually, I'll come over and do that presentation. And it says, proclamation by the mayor of the city of Frankfort, to all of whom these presents shall come, whereas the Children's Tumor Foundation is observing May as National Neurofibromatosis NF Awareness Month to inform the public about this common genetic disorder, and whereas neurofibromatosis is more prevalent than cystic fibrosis, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and Huntington's disease combined, and whereas over 100,000 Americans have NF, and 1 of every 4,000 newborns will develop the disorder, it nevertheless is relatively unknown to the public, and whereas NF causes tumors to grow along nerves throughout the body and can affect the development of other parts of the body, such as bone and skin tumors, bone deformities such as scoliosis of the spine, leg bowing and or twisting, progressive loss of hearing, sight imbalance, learning disabilities, and other symptoms, whereas the Children's Tumor Foundation promotes and supports research aimed at finding the causes of the disorder, developing treatments and a cure, provides information to people with NF, informs the public about the disorder, and is a resource for medical and health professionals. And whereas, while researchers have identified the genes that cause NF, much remains to be done to raise awareness and funding to develop methods of prevention, treatment, and a cure, and the Children's Tumor Foundation leads the efforts in this regard. Now, therefore, William A. Jr., Mayor of the City of Frankfort, Kentucky, in recognition of this important initiative, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2013 the City of Frankfort as Neurofibromatosis Awareness Month, and I will present this to Ms. Brooks. Thank you.
I would like to thank Mayor May and all of the councilmen and councilwomen for the opportunity of being here and accepting this proclamation from the city of Frankfort. Just a few words about NF1. My granddaughter has this, and that's the reason my family and my son in particular, who happens to be on this ward up in New York, work so hard. She was born with this disorder, not a disease, it's a disorder that's caused by one single cell, chromosome 17. And it can happen to any one of you who are having children. There is no way to know that the child is going to be born with it. And 1 out of 3,000 will have it. It is a terrible thing to see because there are such deformities, and my granddaughter has tumors between her spine, and her spine is now beginning to turn, and she has a horrible hump on her back. I have never yet heard that child, who happens to be 12 years old, say anything about feeling bad or hurting. She's never ever said that, and it makes me feel bad because I go around all the time complaining about how bad I feel sometimes. But she is a delightful, very, very smart child. But she'll never have a normal life. And that's why we work so hard and fight so hard to raise money for research so that these children can be helped and they can have a life and be able to have the possibilities of all the way the other children have it. As he had pointed out, and it's unbelievable to me, but this is more prevalent than you think about it. Cystic fibrosis, muscular dystrophy, and Huntington's disease combined, all of those combined, this is more prevalent. And it affects people of all races and ethnic origins, and half of the cases arise in families with no history of this whatsoever. So anyone's next child could be born with this. So I'm hoping that all of you all will step up to the plate and be thinking about some way that you can maybe help raise money for the Children's Tumor Foundation. These are the brochures. I happen to be out of them right now, but if anyone is interested, if you get in touch with City Hall, I would be happy to get your name and put one in the mail to you. And this is also the, and I'll just have to brag a little bit here, but this is the magazine that the NF1 News puts out monthly. And it so happens that this month, my son has an article in it and he was featured. The only thing bad about it, they spelled his hometown Frankfurt. And I'm sure he will see that that's corrected. But I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Please give our regards to
And I may be
Mayor Brooks.
excused, I have.
Oh, sure, thank you so much. Thank you again. All right, thank you. Next item is citizen comments. These are for the agenda items only, since this is a special call meeting. So if there's anyone in the public who'd like to come forward, and I see Ms. Walling coming forward, so if you don't mind identifying your name.
Yeah, my name's Jen Spangler-Williamson. I live at 407 Walking Street. I was the vice chair of the 2nd Street Form Code Task Force. I'm here to encourage the Commission to reauthorize the task force for the purpose of providing input on the 2nd Street Form Code. This effort began with a common interest among members of the community to reinforce a walkable South Frankfort by encouraging commercial development on the 2nd Street corridor that is designed for pedestrians as well as vehicular traffic. The 2nd Street corridor has the same zoning regulations as East Main Street, with lots that are of finer grain. On East Main Street, development requires a 20-foot front yard setback and 3 to 8 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. These requirements can be practically infeasible for some of the lots on 2nd Street, so another objective of this effort was to resolve this. One reason that communities around the country are turning to form codes is that, unlike conventional zoning, they focus more on form than use. They are more flexible in allowing mixed uses like residential over commercial, and they provide for round-the-clock vitality in a neighborhood. They also tend to develop more fungible building stock, which can be more easily adapted to new uses and less likely to be abandoned. The Second Street Form Code effort to date has included community workshops leading to the development of the form by the consultants. These workshops also identified specific areas of safety concerns which were studied in the Greening America's Capitals efforts that we've seen recently. The current draft of the ordinance has issues needing to be addressed, and so when it was heard by the Planning Commission, they voted neither to adopt it or reject it, but rather to send it back to the task force for revision. The task force needs an opportunity to thoroughly edit the work of city staff in the drafting of this ordinance. The focus of the code needs to rest in the form requirements, and while the disposition of National Register properties should be addressed, there are entire sections of the ordinance on historic preservation guidelines which are confusing and should be considered for removal. The task force comments need to resonate with staff so that at the end of the day we can have a straightforward and understandable ordinance. The whole idea of having a form code was that it was supposed to expedite development on 2nd Street because a developer would be assured of the maximum development entitled by form. And that brings me to an exercise which we have asked for repeatedly and has not been produced, but a contrasting development study of individual properties under their current zoning versus the code, I believe would illustrate what this code offers. The city's regulations need to be straightforward and understandable and need little or no interpretation. It will likely take participation of a task force to achieve this.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions? And then you don't have to answer questions if you don't want to, but just anybody.
Would you explain that last part where you were talking about something where we could compare?
Contrasting.
I think if you look at if a developer looks at a property and they look at what the potential buildable area is on that property based on the site setbacks and the parking requirements, and they looked at that with the current zoning versus what the form code is going to allow. Now, the form code in its current draft, it adopts the same parking ordinances that we have in North Frankfort and Central Business District, which are essentially that there's not a required number of off-street parking spaces. But if you took those, the setback requirement and the parking requirement, you would probably see that you would be able to develop more square footage on these commercial lots on 2nd Street than you would with the current zoning. And that study is one that we've, as the task force, have requested on a number of occasions. I think resources are limited, and it was outside of the scope of the consultant's initial work.
Thank you.
You would need to stay, you need to provide a sheet to all that same
Thank you. I'm sorry, folks. I had to ask a city attorney about another item.
Thank you.
Thank
Jen.
you, Ms. Wins. All right. Any other citizen comments on agenda items? Okay, if not, next item is ordinances. We have one ordinance for a first reading as 4.1. And so at this time, I would just ask that the city solicitor read it by title and summary only.
Title, an ordinance appropriating the revenue to be received by the city of Frankfort for fiscal year 2013-2014. By summary, this ordinance appropriates revenue to be received by the city of Frankfort for fiscal year 2013-2014 in accordance with the budget submitted and hereby approved.
I have to write something to the city clerk for this. Thank you, folks. Any questions on the budget? Okay, if not, we are into, that has its first reading, in orders, and I'm actually going to have to write a statement. I just realized on item 5.1 that I'll have a conflict on this item because I serve on the, go ahead, Commissioner Roach.
I'm sorry, Mayor May. So, we're moving from the budget to the next thing?
Unless y'all had questions. And
Does somebody have any questions?
Rebecca.
Gina? Okay.
Okay, and this is just first reading, so if you have other questions, and we'll have another work session before the final adoption, so there'll still be time. And if anyone has any major changes to it, we'd have to go back and do another first reading. If you make a significant change, if it's a small, minor technical change, it won't make it won't make any difference. But if you make any other changes, it would require us to go back and do another first reading. So if there are any changes you want to make, maybe today would be the time to do it. Unless we make changes later, we can always do another special meeting to meet the deadline, but it will have to be approved by June 30th. And if you're thinking about it and you want to come, and before the meeting's over, all we got to do is we can come back to that item.
That's what I was thinking.
And if you want to think about it, we can always come back to it.
Thank you.
And in fact, item 5.1, I'm sorry, go ahead. Anybody else have any? No. I was going to disclose on 5.1 on this order, because it's involving a payment to the Kentucky Association of Counties on behalf of SECEDA, since I serve on the CAECO Legislative Committee, then city solicitor advised it would be best for me to abstain from this, and I'll write up a statement that will explain to the city clerk so we can put that on file. But I just want to let you all know it's because I serve on the CAECO Legislative Committee. And that's because of representing clients that are members of CAECO. So, does anyone have any questions on 5.1? Commissioner Roach,
How much longer do we have to keep making that payment?
do you know?
We need to make the payment until KCDC is able to make it on its own.
What are they lacking to do
Well,
that?
let's assume that they never make it, so how many more years is that, or they can only make that third piece?
It seemed to me that, was it 2018 or 2020, Steve?
I haven't seen the amortization schedule on that.
So in the update.
Sure. We'll add it to the update, if that's okay. But go ahead.
What do they need to do in order to make these payments? I mean, just recruit businesses? Is that what they need to do and get?
They need to sell their land.
Uh-huh.
You know, as you know, they have an office park out there behind, back in the office park where Monoplast is.
Yes.
They've got an office park back in there where they need to sell some land, and then they have land in another area as well that needs to be sold.
Uh-huh. And all that's county property?
That's SECEDA property that's
Seceded, which-
located,
In the county
in
with
the
share
county.
with the city? So we would share occupational tax if business came in?
yes, that's correct. 50/50.
50/50. Is there interest on this loan?
On this promissory note, look at the order. I don't believe that there would be, let's see, interest on this promissory note, although I got the file out of closed files. We actually have an agreement between the city and the county concerning this matter, and of course, I've suggested that that agreement needs to be amended. The promissory notes would pay interest at 1% per annum. And paragraph 2 of the agreement provides that SECEDA agrees to pay as soon as possible the promissory notes in favor of the city and Franklin County. They be paid equally from the proceeds of the next sale of real property or properties owned by SECEDA, after the payment of amounts due on any mortgage or portion thereof, which may apply to the sold property. So what would happen on the, let's say they sell property out in that office park, then Seceda would first pay Keiko the mortgage on the property. This is a lease mortgage. It's a little bit of a hybrid financial instrument, and then it would pay the city and the county thereafter.
May I ask just, I'm sorry. May I ask
Commissioner
one more?
Roach was, I'm sorry, I was
Commissioner
trying to-
Hayden can keep
Right,
going.
just-
I'll just
go ahead,
go
Commissioner.
after she's done.
Thank you, Commissioner Roach.
Is there anything that we know that keeps them from trying to sell this property? Is it the zoning regulations
That's
based
it.
on it
That's
that
it.
we can't sell it? Because I know some people who try to develop and they've been turned away
Yeah, that's
because
it.
it's not what they're looking for. But it's something.
I'm not, the discussions that I've heard is that the property is set up as an office park. However, it does not have the visibility that people who want to be have an office want. They want to have visibility closer to a road like US 60. So this property may be more appropriate for industrial development rather than for offices. However, I have not, it's been, my recollection is that there was some type of an agreement with the residents of Hanley Lane, since this property backs up on Hanley Lane, where they agreed for, there was an agreement reached that it be developed for offices rather than industrial development.
How do we get these people to sell their property so we can?
I would,
Go ahead, Commissioner Roach.
Rob, if you could, that's exactly right, based on my knowledge about it. And of course, we know that they're never going to sell office park space there,
Right.
that you couldn't give the land away. So as a result, we're gonna have to pay this until it's over. But I guess my question is if you could find us what are the particulars about any kind of agreements that were made having to do with zoning, because that tract is zoned in a way that it can never be used. Because like I said, nobody's ever going to put an office park where nobody can see it. So I think what we need to find out is what were the terms and the agreements, and what can we perhaps do to modify anything so that that property has some value, that we can attract more industry and we can get our money.
Right.
Makes sense.
I'll talk to Kim Smith at KCDC and get that information.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions on 5.1? Either entertain a motion or not do anything and just
I move we adopt.
moved by Commissioner Bowers.
Second.
To adopt 5.1 and second by Commissioner Haynes. Now is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk please call roll.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowers? Yes. Mr. Hedden?
Yes.
Mayor May?
And I am going to abstain on the advice of council, and since I serve on the KCO Legislative Committee,
Last time.
believe that it would be a possible conflict of interest for me to vote on the order to pay $38,324.85 on behalf of Seceda. So the item is adopted. Next item is 5.2, and I've got this handwritten, but I can type it up. I'll type it up. Okay, okay. 5.2 is an order dealing with the creation of a citizen task force to study a form-based code. We've already heard information about why the task force was formed and a request from Ms. Williamson. And I'm sorry, I realized, I said earlier this was going to be a first read, but it's an order, so I did not realize this would be voted on tonight. Unless we're not ready to vote, we can pass over it to get more information if you would like to. There's certainly no, I don't think there's a rush. There's no time deadline we're faced. And I mean, I actually would probably prefer to get a little bit more information from staff, unless y'all want to go ahead. can move forward. Commissioner
I
Bowers.
noticed she said that they had asked several times, I think I heard her correctly, for a study contrasting what it would look like with the form versus now. Would it be better to do a study like that before we actually form this task force by staff, or which?
We have Maya DeRose, our planning supervisor, here with us, and if there's no objection, we'll ask Maya she might be able to answer your question, Commissioner. Is that okay?
Sure.
Hello, Maya DeRosa, Planning Supervisor. Yes, I'm familiar with those requests. The reason why that wasn't addressed is we had some momentum at the time when we were moving through the public review process. That's one of a few other areas that are still under contemplation of what the next steps with the code should be. So if I was to actually recommend, I think the first step is to bring it back to the task force, and that could be one of several things that they could direct staff to do. And then we could bring it back to you all to show you where we're at before we move forward on any new public process with it. But at this point, the task force is no longer legally intact, if you will.
I guess, yeah, my question is, should our city staff conduct that study before we put a task, before we we'll have to reappoint members, but before we have a task force back? Should our staff conduct that study, or?
Well, if I've read Ms. Williamson's comments and her concern and I guess succinctly trying to looking at the whole of all the comments that came in about things that were not fully explored, we could do that, but at the same time, there's questions about the public realm and what do we do in between, in the streets and with lights. So we could, but to me, it would be only looking at one part of a vacuum with many other things that should be considered.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Roach.
Hey, I think I asked Gary this the last time. Looks to me like there's 4 choices. One's yes, reappoint it. Another one's no. Another choice is yes, but strip the historic preservation element out of it. And then another one is no, and make some sort of special zoning modifications for that area. Are those really the 4 choices?
In a nutshell, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I knew what I was doing. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners? So we can either pass it over and leave it on the agenda for next month.
Why don't we have a discussion in the work session about the 4 choices? Which order do you think, Commissioner Roach? Is that what?
I'm fine with that.
Commissioner
Okay.
Roach, what do you think?
Just keeps,
Get put on.
Keeps being
Yeah.
put on down further?
I'm
Yes.
fine, whatever y'all want to do.
It's okay if someone wants to make a motion on something tonight. Keep saying tonight, but it's afternoon.
Yes.
but I mean, you already have 2 people that said they want to wait till next month for you, what you considered, Lynn.
Okay, I move that we put it on the work session and consider the choices of yes, no, yes with no historic portion, and no with some kind of zoning modification.
Okay, Commissioner Haynes wants to make a motion that we put this on the next work session. So we'll pass over today, and put it on the work session and consider the 4 options or any other options that are available.
And could we ask the staff to give us what they think appropriate zoning modifications might look like?
Let me dispose of since this motion is specific.
Okay.
So we can make a you can make a second or you can not, and then we can redo the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Commissioner Roach. Okay, now discussion. Commissioner Bowers.
I'm sorry, what?
That's okay. Now I said, now we've got to say, now go ahead.
Did you second
He
the
seconded.
first motion?
I seconded his motion.
You seconded Mr. Haynes' motion.
So now, you want to talk about
Well, I think
this?
we should call for the question on that motion and vote
Okay.
that motion.
Okay.
That's what I think.
And let me explain too, what we voted on would be to put this on the work session and look at 4 or more options. And if someone comes up with other options at that point, we can add those out there too. So you don't have to be specific to not today. So if there's no further discussion, clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowers?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes, okay, so item 5.2 is adopted. I'm sorry, the item 5.2 will be on the work session agenda. Okay. We have no resolutions. Item 7 is consent calendar, so I will ask the city manager to take care of the consent calendar items.
Thank you, Mayor May. First item is 7.1, which is to authorize the mayor to sign an annual audit engagement letter with Mountjoy Chilton Medley LLP and the city of Frankfort. This is a third of a 3-year contract. Total cost is $31,040, $21,040 of which will be by the general fund and $10,000 of which will be by our sanitary sewer fund. 7.2 is to authorize award of a contract to Herrick Company for the grid channel modifications. The modifications to the channel will increase the velocities. What we're currently running into is excess sediment forming in the channel that runs between the head end and the grid chamber. And these modifications will allow, increase the velocity rather, so we take in less of the sediment, and it'll improve the efficiency of the system. The low bid, several bids were taken. The low bid was $83,657, and again, that is to Herrick and Company. Engineer's estimate was $86,000. Item 7.3 is the assumption of a sewer extension contract for the village at Duckers by the Kentucky Bank. Evidently, the original developer could not finish the work, so Kentucky Bank is going to take over, or assume, I should say, the sewer extension contract. There is no cost to the city. The development does cover about 54 lots and includes 10 manholes and 1,651 lineal feet of sewer pipe. Item 7.4 is a similar project. It is the assumption of a sewer extension contract for Pebblebrook subdivision by M.O. Holding Company, LLC. Again, the developer could not complete the work that they originally had contracted for with the city, and the contract was then purchased by M.O. Holdings, and there is no cost to the city. Item 7.5 is to approve a sewer extension contract with the Kentucky State Police for a training center on Coffee Tree Road. When new sewer mains are to be extended, there are agreements, and this is one contract that the developers will sign to extend sanitary sewer in a way that's consistent with city standards. There is no cost to the city for this project as well. The next item, 7.6, is to authorize entering into a contract with Med 3000 for ambulance billing, providing hardware and software in addition to the billing service. This would be a, let me see here. The contract would begin July 1 of 13 and would extend for 3 years. It would provide for a 6.5% fee, and there's a feeling that the collections would increase from roughly 55 or 56% to about 60 to 65%, so there would be some financial advantage to the fire department. Again, the contract is effective July 1, 2013, and it is for about 6.5% of our collections. Item 7.7 is for the sewer department to purchase a Vector. This is a vehicle that will help clean our sanitary sewer as well as our storm sewer system. It would be purchased from Jack, I believe that's Dehaney Companies, for $384,422. I do want to explain that originally we had budgeted $80,000 per year for a 5-year period. However, after a financial review by Finance Director Steve Dawson, it was felt that the funds were available in our sewer department to make an immediate purchase to avoid the interest costs, and considering that our interest costs are really quite low, the recommendation is to purchase at this time. It's worth noting that we sold our previous Factor for $125,000, so there is a lower net cost. Item 7.8 is to award a contract to Basham Construction and Rental Company for $532,000. It replaces a 36-year-old pump station. We received 5 bids on April 24. The bids range from $532,000 to $665,000 plus. Bell Engineering was the company that we worked with. Unfortunately, it did come in over the engineer's estimate, but there were several mitigating factors that helped increase the cost, one of which is a prevailing wage. Item 7.9 is to authorize change order 2 for Reynolds Inliner LLC for work completed on the Two Creeks Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. This actually decreases the city's cost by $39,171. Basically, it is a compilation of the unit prices, and it's just cleanup work basically, so there is a reduction. Final contract amount is $678,078.64. Item 7.10, and then since item 7.10 and 7.11 are partnered together, but it's 710 is to consider award of an engineering services agreement with URS Corporation for evaluation of the Home Depot pump station, which is located north of I-64 and east of US 127. That pump station is about 10 years old. It's showing some significant signs of deterioration, and there are some pipe size issues that are further downstream that will be looked at. And the cost for this is $31,533. Again, it is with URS, and the reason I say it partners with 7.11 is because we will be recommending a $21,701 engineering contract or services agreement with URS Corporation to look at the Poplar Creek pump station, which is the opposite corner. It is also north of I-64, but west of US 127. We're experiencing some similar depreciation, or I should say deterioration in the metal piping and the concrete as we experienced on the other side. Total contract amount between the two would be $53,234. Superintendent or Department Director Scalf does report that there, in addition to just looking at replacing these, there will be some consideration to see if the two can be combined. Item 7.12 is to amend an engineering services contract with Strand Associates for construction administration services associated with the repairing and replacing of 2 interceptor lines beneath Kentucky Avenue. Amendment 1 would add $235,000. Amendment 2 would add $562,000. $262,000 for a grand total of $532,000. One of the pipes is a 27-inch vitrified clay, which is built in the 50s, and the other is a 30-inch, 30 to 48-inch concrete pipe. Both are showing signs of decay and deterioration. And the engineer's estimate for the total project is about $4.9 million. Item 7.13 is a contract and authorizing the mayor to sign the Center for Internet Security and Multi-State Member Agreement. This enables the city to participate in information sharing, analysis, gathering, and distribution in a secure manner. Even though the financial aspects does say that the cost is less than $20,000, our IT director does assure me that there actually is no cost to the city. Item 7.14 is with Source Technologies. It's for odor control. This is a renewal contract. It was a 4-year, it was actually approved on March 26, 2012 for 1 year with 4 one-year renewals. This, again, is for odor control. The advantage to this is not only do they provide the materials, the supplies, and the labor, they also respond to citizen complaints as well. The cost is $143,166, which is, or I should say, plus a 2.1% CPI, which is a total of $146,172. Item 7.15 is to authorize the mayor to sign the 2012 Stormwater Phase 2 annual report for the city. Each year, the city of Frankfort is required to submit a report to the Kentucky Division of Water summarizing the city Phase 2 stormwater program. And I don't know that there's any cost to the city. And then item 7.16 is Our street department is partnering with our park department to put a 3-inch asphalt overlay on the gravel road and the parking lot leading to and the parking for Coke Spring. Estimated cost is $32,000. This is just for the material that would be provided. Our street department will actually provide the labor and the equipment. Personnel, Your Honor, we have promotion of Brandon McLean in the Public Works Department from a Tech 2 to a Tech 3. We have a voluntary demotion of Ryan Adams in the Public Works Department from a Tech 3 to a Tech 2, and I just should take a second to explain that. Ryan is moving from our sanitation department to the street department, and we'll be moving down, and his reasoning is the future and the promotion potential is better in the street department than it is in sanitation, so he's volunteered to take that move. The next one is a promotion of Mark Luttrell in the sewer department from Sewer Tech 2 to Sewer Tech 3. And finally, the resignation of Jeremy Warren in our finance department. Jeremy was the license enforcement officer, and that is effective 5/31/13.
Okay, you've heard the consent items. All members who voted present will be considered to have voted in the affirmative on the consent calendar unless there's vote modification forms filed with the city clerk. So I'll just someone just make a motion to move the consent orders. We said we'd make a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Roach.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Haynes. Okay, consent orders are adopted. Next item is board appointments, none for this month. Old businesses, we know business. Oh, sorry, my fault, I just realized. Special meeting.
Well, if I could just give
Go ahead,
old
Commissioner.
business on Seceda.
Yes, go ahead.
And I believe that 2013 may be the last payment due based upon correspondence that I haven't filed, but I'd like to confirm that with Kim Smith, with Seceda. And we'll do so and send an email to Tim, and I'm sure he'll let you all know.
And if you could find out what the parameters are on the sale of that land.
Will do.
Thank you. And we need to go back to the budget if we need.
If you want to go back to the budget, we can go back now. Because we can't, I just realized we can't bring up any new business because it's a special meeting. So we can go back in, if you want to go back to, was it 4.1?
Yes, sir.
We can return back to the agenda items 4.1 if there's no objection. Commissioner Roach.
Well, I kind of want to just hear what people had to say about the budget. And it may be just everybody's ready to go and go with it and go on. I guess a couple of questions that I had was I'm still uncomfortable with having raised taxes and then having a raise of 2.5%. I realize that's staggered, but I think in light of raising taxes and then having a raise, that might be a problem, but we may decide that it's not. So that's one thing I would be concerned about. The other is that, and I think we're going to solve that with the sewer budget with maybe some different language, but the CPI is for the last 12 months is 1.7 under the CPI, and the last 12 months under the Fed's indicator is 1.1. So our number we're using for CPI, inflation's actually lower than that. So that would be another thing that I would want to look at. But I wanted to hear what people had to say about the budget. Maybe they don't have anything to say.
Any commissioners want to add anything, or?
I just want to say that I reviewed the budget. I was always pleased to see that they presented a balanced budget. I liked with the options, and actually all the questions I had were asked by other commissioners. So I read their response and also read the city manager's response. So at this point, I don't have any major, objections to what has been presented thus far. So I was trying to wait and see if anything new actually came up different than what's been presented to us.
Any other members wish to add any comments?
Just thank you, Steve, and department heads for doing a great job. Once again, the budget process, I guess, has gotten a lot smoother than it was 12 years ago when I first came on board. So I thank you all. Commissioner Roach, I think the other night when you brought up the COLA, I told you I was willing to go along with just taking a one-time increase, maybe the July increase, and I heard Commissioner Hedden over here, but I don't know if that was an agreement or not, so I don't really know.
I don't know where we are. And
I
would-
I got a few comments, not a lot, from citizens about that. But I talked with Steve Dawson, and it wouldn't save us, how much would you say it would save us? How much would it save us? If we just knocked out the January increase?
Do you mind if you're going to say, just so we can get it on the microphone for the record?
Probably good for you to come up, yeah.
Otherwise, it will not come across.
I don't think,
Okay.
you told me it would,
The second increase, the 1%, anytime you add 1%, it's $200,000.
okay.
So,
That was the only thing.
I just have two quick things. Then one of them, I want to thank everybody for answering all the questions that I sent. I'm sure you enjoyed them. Appreciate that. And my second thing on the increase, it's not the amount the first year that costs you the money. It's the recurring cost year after year. Our revenues coming in are growing at about 1%. So if you increase salaries 2.5%, eventually there's going to be a problem. So if we want to, and the only way there won't be a problem is through really good management. We're fortunate that we've got that. I'm just not confident enough that we can continue that for a long period of time. I'm afraid that, we may have a year or two that we're not watching it like we have. We've got great department heads. Steve does a great job with money. I think everybody knows that. I'm confident in Tim, but I do think you always have to be a little nervous if your compensation costs increase greater than what's coming in to your operating revenues. And I believe our revenues are just growing 1%, and we're looking toward an increase of 2.5%. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, if there's no other business, this is a special meeting, we'll have to make a motion.
Oh, Commissioner,
Sorry, Commissioner Roach, Commissioner Bowers, whether you want to answer it. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you wanted to make a motion to undo that, or you leave it alone?
I just want to see what people have to say, and I'll talk, like I said, the later one.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Moved by Commissioner Bowers to adjourn, second by
Second.
Commissioner Haynes. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, you can remain in your seats.
Do I get to vote?
You can take Commissioner.
Thank you all.
Haynes.